All right, now the onus is on Bernie Sanders to try and stage a comeback after that Nevada loss. But can he score a win in South Carolina, a state with many African-American voters who are loyal to Hillary Clinton? Margret Talev, Bloomberg's White House correspondent, has been following the Democratic primaries and joins us from the Palmetto State. Margret, what are you hearing on the ground there? Is this concept that South Carolina is the firewall, that this is sort of what the Clinton campaign is espousing, does that make sense and jive with what you're seeing on the ground?
It does, and she's certainly counting on it. And the question will be twofold. How big is that firewall? And what is the age split in that firewall? If she manages to hold South Carolina in the contest by something like a 20-point lead, as some of the early polls have shown, that will validate her strategy going forward. If it ends up being much closer than that, or if you end up seeing a split where young African-American voters are going for Sanders, it could spell potential trouble for her down the road. So while Nevada certainly gave her a reprieve, that 5-point buffer allows her to turn her sort of messaging around and get off of the defensive, she needs to live up to the results that are expected in South Carolina, or it may become a drag for her heading into the Super Tuesday stage. It's
certainly an expectations game, and you talked a lot about young voters. As we look at the polls out of Nevada, the entrance polls there, Sanders won young voters 17 to 29 by a 17 to 82 margin. So you can imagine what that could possibly change the ball game in South Carolina. She's also changing a little bit as you listen to Hillary Clinton. She's changing her messaging as it comes to the campaign. Take a listen.
You know, I am so thrilled and so grateful to all of my supporters out there. Some may have doubted us, but we never doubted each other. And this one's for you.
How significant you think is this change in messaging? This is for you. We're all in this together. This is our revolution.
Yeah, it's certainly not accidental. We, us, you're going to continue to hear more of that. Early on in the campaign, you know, Clinton and her aides thought that it was certainly a big asset for her to make the case that she should be the nominee because she had been tested, because the Republicans have gone after her because of her long record. As the campaign has evolved and Sanders has sort of taken hold, among many of the Democrats who are not that enthusiastic about Clinton, it has become increasingly clear that those voters don't like the focus on her and wanted to hear more of a focus on them. And she's absolutely responding to that. You heard her do it last night, and I'll be interested to hear how she shapes that rhetoric in South Carolina. And what will be interesting about South Carolina is that although she's worked very hard to mend a lot of those fences, there were some bad feelings in 2008 in the primary where she ran against Barack Obama. And I think it will be especially important for her to deliver that message of us rather than I when she's talking to African-American voters here in the state.
It'll be interesting to see how that translates into sort of the everyday stump speech as she's out there. Speaking of that bad blood in South Carolina, how does Bill Clinton play into the South Carolina primary over the next 6-day sprint?
Yeah, fantastic question, and we will certainly see him here. He will be careful and on message, presumably. It's really important for him to do that. There are a lot of South Carolina voters here who still are very fond of him and have decided to let 2008 be a bygone. The problem about President Clinton is that sometimes when he's on a rope line, not necessarily at the podium, when someone catches him and there's the camera, he may go off script sometimes and feels passionate about his cause and passionate about supporting his wife. And so there will be a lot of emphasis for both of the Clintons to stay on message. And the message to blacks in South Carolina for her is that she has been with them for an awfully long time, and Bernie Sanders is a newer face and untested, and they should stick with the candidates that they know. That is her message to them. And whether it will obviously be an easier sell to older African-American voters. The question that won't be answered until Election Day is whether younger African-American voters are as motivated by what John Lewis asked them to do or other civil rights leaders asked them to do.
And we've seen younger voters in New Hampshire, in Iowa, and obviously now in Nevada all break for Bernie Sanders. Margret Talev from Bloomberg Politics has followed the Democrats. Come back and join us. Appreciate your insights.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.